It's Rich Mclean, the famous scapegoat and infamous refugee in his own country. I'd like to point out some crime tonight. That's because it's happened, and I'd like to point out the people that are involved in those crimes and why they are trying to hospitalise or incarcerate or jail me before I get the chance at justice. According to the Charter of Human Rights of People with a Disability, it's incumbent on every public official to act within that law and not detract from it. Let me list the people, at least a few people, that I've got time for now that I'm driving to Mildura, have crossed the line. So basically, systemic oppression led me to suicide. That was from a valid complaint, and it took years actually before they ground me down into the ground. That's called government systemic oppression. That happened over years. I was framed, and the methodology of delay, defer, deny was applied. All the while, they watched me squirm. It was all the people at AFCA, where I'm banned from calling, all the people at Health Complaints Commissioner, and then all the people at the police, all the people at the Maribyrnong Criminal Investigations Unit, all the people at IBAC and the Victorian Inspectorate, even the Ombudsman. See, as a scapegoat, I've done nothing wrong. I'm innocent, but I'm worth millions upon millions of dollars in detriment, and Finance Minister Birmingham knows about this. I have pointed out exactly the detriment he owes me, and I offered him an atonement that as long as he just pays a monthly wage, a basic wage, just to basically exist, which I can't now, then we can work out the detriment later. There'll be no reason to admit guilt, and you can probably save a life. Now, I also emailed the Prime Minister and got my freedom of information. He emailed me back, and the Office of the Australian Information Commissioner, also a public body, who is bound by the human rights law of Charter of People with a Disability and human rights, all the people there rejected my application, and they're going to release it from the Prime Minister's office on the 8th of April, my birthday. Happy birthday to me. So basically, the Attorney General, Mclean Im, is another person who's sadly broken the law. She hasn't acted within the Charter of Human Rights of People with a Disability, which states we should have a home, we should have food, medication, we shouldn't be victimised, and we shouldn't be tortured. And additionally, we should have access to the law, and additionally, we should have equal representation before the law. Now, under her portfolio is Comcare, AFCA, ASIC, a lot of portfolios which I've had some real trouble with. See, I lost Liz Lindbergh. She was the one who kicked the can down the road and oppressed me at the Australian Human Rights Commission. That's right. And I lost, could you believe it, $1.5 million at least. And then AFCA, they watched me burn both before and after my suicide. And so I called them out, and they dropped over $2 million worth of cases. Tim Goss and Peter Fisher and the overseer at AFCA, that wasn't a very nice, equitable and fair thing to do to an already vulnerable person. And I'd like to point out to, who else? What about, oh, there you go, Greg Hunt. He was one of the ones that covered up the original evidence that I had that was taken in a non-malicious way, in which I was framed as a scapegoat and an extortionist. And I didn't even know that until after my suicide in Werribee Mercy Hospital, where the CEO, Professor Stevenson, told me, I offered him just a simple, couple of $1,000 atonement if he would just acknowledge that it happened. The freedom of information says that it was a fatal injury and a lethal attempt. Well, that's not very nice to do to someone. to systemically oppress them so much over years that they are aiding and abetting their death. I mean, that's not a very nice thing to do at all. It's a funny thing that the death, which was deemed fatal, happened in a public place. Wouldn't you think there'd be at least an atonement or a legal case there? Oh, not for Rich. Rich is banned from police. He's banned from all lawyers. He's banned as a whistleblower from APRA, from ASIC, and from the Commonwealth Ombudsman. This Wednesday, I can't forget what the date is today because I've got a very forgetful brain after that accident. The hospital CEO told me to sue him directly and personally, but he knows I'm absolutely powerless. And the apology from the hospital wasn't really that sincere, because when I was robbed of all agency and will to live, having been burnt and crossed by every human being I know, losing faith in the human condition, not realising I'd been framed and treated with malpractice and utter contempt by Dr. Kumar, who is also a part of the conspiracy due to the sins of omission, and he knew about my former partner owing me $500,000 15 years ago because he was my psychiatrist. Anyway, the CEO told me to sue him directly, knowing I'm utterly powerless. And that's a pretty shit place to be, especially when you're a public person with a public profile and you've written a very courageous book that's helped so many people, and you've been an advocate for 25 plus years. It's a really nasty thing to do to someone, to want to aid and abet their death. And after I was dumped from the hospital, after I was filled up with blood and got golden staph, and now I can't feel my feet, and I've got a very forgetful brain, and basically died, and it was covered up and condoned by the Health Complaints Commissioner and the Mental Health Complaints Commissioner and the Ombudsman. So, as we can see, the government has now had an oppressive regime that victimises and vilifies one person, being me, and that actually killed me. And further, then they went ahead, scapegoated me. Not one single person stood up for me in the whole entire world, and so I did. But the government covered it up, whitewashed it. And then I was dumped. My father told me to pay my own rent, and I've lived in squalor for a whole entire year. In that, they're trying to aid and abet my death by attacking me via proxy of government agencies, cooked from the top, and to rob me through detriment of any prosperity whatsoever. Therefore, I can't pay rent. So here's a message to Hung Ho. I'd love to pay your rent. I'd love to, I've meant no harm in not paying the rent, but this is detriment. I also owe Scott McLeod and other people, like Shane and Mick, some money, because I've had to borrow money literally to survive. I've got payday loans I have to pay off, because in actual fact, I was, after my suicide, the government, knowing I had a suicide attempt, put me on job seeker, when in actual fact I was already on leave for finding out that I'd been catastrophically framed and character assassinated. That's because of my former partner at ASIO, and it's also because I lost a VOCAT case where I saved a guy from being beaten up, and that's video evidence, and also the police refused to give me that evidence, and VOCAT pinned it on me, and that wasn't very nice to do. And then my sexual abuse case, which I became aware of as I was doing my PhD, I wrote about. I even did a public speech about it. In fact, I've done many public speeches, hundreds in fact, from Parliament House to Dubbo to Montreal to all over the bloody place, you know. I've been an advocate for fairness, equitability, and I've been an agent of human rights, dignity, and standing up for the underdog. And now I'm finding I have to stand up for myself in the ultimate battle of life and death, And now I lost another VOCAT case. Now this one was my own sexual abuse case. It was thrown out of court after delaying, deferring and denying, which is the official mantra of get fucked. And so when that went to court at Geelong Magistrates Court, the magistrate kicked it out. Now, she wrote to me and said that kitty fiddling wasn't a crime against the boy when I was that age. And clearly I was framed as a mad person who's extorting people for money, which I didn't know. So whatever powers or reasons there were, she told me that kitty fiddling was only a crime for chicks or little girls, not little boys. So in my kindness, I never named my abuser, and she threw my case out. And so my case was thrown out, and I lost it. And I was doing my VOCAT case for a client who also, as a registered therapist for the NDIS, a government employee. Yes, I have a number. And further to that, I knew I'd been catastrophically framed. I put some measures in place that would protect me from being triggered from my own client's sexual abuse case, where heinous child rapes and incest happened. Now, I just want to say that in actual fact, sorry, I had to do a lane change there. In actual fact, I had to leave work because it was stressful being triggered by my client, and also from his abusive texts, and also because it wasn't a prior illness like schizophrenia I'd prior acknowledged. It was actually a character assassination by the government that I was not yet aware of. Therefore, HCF should have paid me out $75,000. You'd think that Sheena Jack, the CEO, would have been really embarrassed having doctored documents and overseen that, and me called her out. But then, of course, I've got no agency to go to the police, to go to an ombudsman, or report it anywhere, really. So anyone, anywhere can get away with what they want. So, further to the sexual abuse case, which was more detriment. I mean, detriment. Let's just spell it out. The other people that are complicit in this conspiracy to pervert the course of justice via omission and via ignoring me happen to be a lot of parliamentarians. Now, as a person who's worth multi-millions of dollars and is easily exploitable by things that I've admitted to in public life, such as I've used drugs, or I'm gay, or I had regretful sex, or any one of the things that have tried to be pinned on me, and they will, and they've done it because I realise in my life that no one's on my side. They seem to think that I'm the too hard basket, or they've been told libel and slander that has affected their relationship with me. I've had friend after friend abandon me, and this has affected me greatly and broken my heart. More so than living in poverty for an entire year as they tried to aid and abet my death via keeping me from money. So, I've also had support workers leave me, one after the other, and in addition to that, I've had zero support from Werribee Mercy Hospital or Saltwater Clinic, which is the place that came to my door today in order to lock me up. Because when you're worth multi-millions of dollars and you're easily exploitable, one of two things happens. Either you are framed for a crime you haven't done, locked up, called crazy and incarcerated, or the other option is you just delay, defer, deny until he kills himself. Because, as we know, we've convinced everyone that Richard's not worth anything. That's right, the conspiracy and the movement, and not me personally, because I've proven my worth in a PhD doctorate, arguing what sanity is and isn't. And I've also spent a whole life advocating for people who are more marginalised than me. And to the people who call me an extortionist, I actually gave $100,000 back to the person that gave it to me at the same time I was being called an extortionist. And that is because I'm an ethical man. And this isn't about money for me. This is about freedom from oppression. Because I get death threats at the door, and I have prior knowledge as an insider that the next time I'm locked up, which happened this morning, or I escaped this morning to Bendigo and then Mildura, that I'm going to be incarcerated permanently, framed with a crime, and I will never see the light of day again. Not that any of you care so far, apart from a few people I need to really thank. And I'm going to call it out as a whistleblower. But as we know, I can't be a whistleblower. So the funny thing is, so funny, that I'm kind of screwed every which way I go. Now, I've hit the road. I'm going on an adventure. Someone's looking after the dog. And I'd just like to point out to every person in a position of power and privilege that's aided and abetted my death, or has conspired to make me die, or has conspired, like Cade from Saltwater Clinic, who doesn't see justice, he sees illness. And not many people in the world see justice. I've always been a justice campaigner. I've got a human rights award, and I've travelled the world spruiking it to intelligent and amazing people all over North America and Melbourne, Australia, in Parliament House. I mean, you can see why Scott Morrison probably didn't want to give up my freedom of information, and that was covered up because there's details in there that's going to expose a conspiracy to pervert the course of justice and a vile, heinous victimisation that ended up in my death, for which I was victim blamed and no one stood up for me. And then, only then, things got worse. My business was destroyed. I was put on the dole instead of a pension which I was on prior. And it's been a horrible uphill journey for me over my life. The funny Chill Rich is still here. He's sorry for any things he's done unequivocally for any confusions that I may have had at the time. But I'm a free man, apart from trying to be incarcerated for the rest of my life that I escaped from today. And I just would expect the same equity and equality from the other side. But see, I'm only one person, but everyone who has carried that torch or paid by the government to toe the party line to oppress and deny me justice, which is against the law, as we know, and it's ingrained in the foundations of this country, that I think all of those people must have been told some really good dirt on me. But you know what? They don't know me, and they're cowards. It's very easy for a person who eats steak and sits in a nice cushy job as a pen pusher for the government, or an agent in mental health, or anything like that, to toe the party line. Here's a bit of cash. Here's what we stand for. Here's what you can do. Delay, defer, deny. Delay, defer, deny is now over. Bill Shorten, Adam Bant, Katie Hall. There are many people who know about my distress, and many, many people who know about the malpractice and the injustice that I've been through. It's quite heinous. And when you think about that it actually killed me, there's no way the government can admit that. And I think that's why Michaelia Cash and the NDIA Minister, Reynolds, who has denied any of my prosperity whatsoever by rejecting my claims and sent me to a homeless centre, which also rejected me, have acted in congruence and in a delightful, oppressive symphony to deny me money. And in that way, it makes me really, really desperate, makes me beg for money off people. I'm owed millions upon millions of dollars. A conspiracy to pervert the course of justice is highly accountable in the High Court. I plan to take the government to the High Court, and I wish to say that I'm not suicidal. I am not delusional. I'm pretty affected by all the abuse that's happened, and the systemic oppression and the actual torture that this has put me through, and the actual victimisation, the vilification, the inability to report crime, and the objections of the police, the prejudice of the police, and the silent gaslighting from every systemic agency known to the Australian humankind. So in that, I'd like to just say, closing up, that I'm not unwell. A movement to oppress me has occurred. I needed everyone's help. I needed help when I was fired from the Age. I needed help when I came out. I needed help when, so many occasions. I needed help when I was fired from the next job. I needed help legally. I needed help with the AAT. Like on Wednesday, I'm losing $2 million, and the Attorney General condones that as nothing to see. That's because the government, already having killed me, has a 20-year experienced lawyer to kick me in the head when I'm down. And where would I go to appeal that? The Ombudsman, where I'm already rejected as a whistleblower. And that, friends, is a little story of oppression by Randy Rich. Rich Mclean, the Queen, is a bisexual poof to straight person. And by the way, I'm a rapist, a pedophile, a dog fucker, and I extort people for money by killing myself just for kicks. And my family has always been there for me. Oh, hang on, just kidding. None of those things ever happened. I'm actually a really nice guy, as you all know, and I'm asking for your help. If you could help get me some agency to get some traction with the law. I'm on a little bit of a road trip at the moment, so if you can pay ID, I'll put it on the video. 0400 639 248. An incredible injustice has occurred, and an oppressive regime that goes right to the top. I single-handedly could turn this country upside down in an instant. I have offered the government atonement. I have said, moving forward, there is no way forward. I now have a brain injury. I can't remember what I did last minute. You can tell I'm a kind of stream of consciousness guy. But anyway, look, I'm going to sign off, and I just want to say that I'm going to hold all those public officials to account, because there are laws in place, human rights laws, and there are laws that should keep disabled people in a home, equity before the law, that I'm never prejudiced against, never exploited, and also never tortured. This has been an utter torturous life. You know why? Because I was vulnerable and I spoke the truth. And I speak the truth now, and the truth will set us all free. I'll forgive you all, but, I'm going to need a little bit of encouragement to get to the next stop. Someone's looking after my dog. And I want to have, when I get back, a meeting with a psychiatrist, because they're going to get me there anyway by the law, the Mental Health Act. But, why should I follow that act if I can't report rape, murder, fraud, tax evasion, drug trafficking, car stealing, or my stolen phone, or anything at all to police? So it goes only one way, and that's the oppression and destruction and incarceration and gaslighting and ostracisation of rich. So I'm going to hold all those people to account via the legislation, and I think, and I have evidence and an insider's view, that I will be locked up forever. None of you will ever see me again if I'm caught. And in fact, the SWAT team came last time because they think I'm such a danger. What a joke. I wouldn't punch my way out of a wet paper bag. Anyway, I'm fine. I'm hanging out. I'm trying to remain positive and see this whole thing as really, it could be an allegory of the rebirth of Jesus Christ. Like, I've lost every single person in the world, and maybe it's just time for me to be born again, have a laugh, forgive you all, and move you all into the next dimension. Anyway, it's Rich McLean signing off. I just missed me turn off. Bloody hell. Anyway, all right. See you all. Can you please PayPal me some money, or get me a federal independent lawyer, or get me a independent newspaper article person, or get me anyone at all who can please get me some atonement with justice and freedom from oppression and death threats. And also, I demand whistleblower status. And also, I reject utterly that I could be incarcerated under the Mental Health Act, under legislation, when the legislation doesn't go both ways. I'm on the run, like Thelma and Louise. Watch me go off the cliff, if you want to. See you later, guys. Have a lovely night.